Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce GTX 1066GB model in Borderlands 4, or Broken Lands 4. This one is the MSI Gaming X version of the card. I'm running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs here in Tech Power-Ups GPU Z, and over on the left, I'm pairing it with the i5-12600KF CPU, overclocked to 5.1 GHz and 32GB of RAM. It's a bit overkill for a GTX 1060, but who cares? We're here to test the GPU. So let's do it, shall we? And well, will you look at that? The GTX 1060 is already struggling in the menu. It's expected, I guess. We're at 1080p resolution using the lowest settings with FSR native AA, or full resolution enabled. This actually makes it run better than if you disable upscaling altogether, by the way. It's a couple of more FPS, but it's still a couple of more FPS. Yeah, this is lowest settings. Let's do this. We're compiling the shaders for the second time. For some reason, this game compiles the shaders when you launch it, and then when you get into it as well, load the game, you know, and it seems like it's getting very similar FPS to what we saw in the menu. And that's probably because it ran out of VRAM already. I'm not sure. VRAM allocation seems to be maxed out there, and the RAM usage is quite high, so it probably already swapped some things. And the power utilization on this GPU is at 90 watts, down into the 70 watt range sometimes, and it's supposed to be a 120 watt GPU. So that's a clear indicator that the VRAM is maxed out, and well, that's a big shame, basically, because if it wasn't, if this game had lower resolution textures at the lowest settings, or maybe if these textures were actually optimized, because they're not really anything special, to utilize more than 6 GB of VRAM at lowest settings, right? But yeah, either way, it would probably run a lot better because it would be able to fully utilize the GTX 1060's capabilities here instead of lowering it down to like 70 watts at times. I will try it out next with quality FSR, alright, which renders the game at 720p resolution and then upscales it to the 1080p res, and now we're up into the mid-20s. So after playing with 19 FPS for a bit of time, you know, 4 minutes or so, I am seeing that this is actually decent. Like, the most impressive thing about this game probably is the fact that even with these super low frame rates, it's responsive. There's not a lot of input lag. In some other titles, you'll see these frame rates and the mouse is just super weird. It will feel terrible, you know. But here, it actually is responsive. Alright, so we got some enemies here. See that? That was pretty bad, actually, but I mean, obviously, you will be at a big disadvantage here if you are playing with 20 FPS, but you can still aim at people and shoot at people, and it's going to be meh. No, it's bad. It's very bad, but I would never recommend this. But if you must play the game with 20 FPS, at least it's responsive in terms of mouse movements. Oh, damn. That was a nice kill there. Interesting. I didn't know that you could do that. But see that? I'm able to follow him around. Usually, with other games, at 20 FPS, this wouldn't be possible. I would be super mad because I would be missing all of the shots and so on. Still, not recommended, obviously. It's 25 FPS after all, so we need to lower it down, okay? Upscaling quality, let's set it to performance here. And today, I will test the frame generation as well, because I forgot to test that with the GTX 1650. Ooh, nice! So jacks are actually helping me today. Come on, stop attacking me, attack that bastard. Let's go, good stuff. Come on. Alright, so with 30 FPS, much better than 20s. Still dropping into the 20s though, and this is essentially 540p resolution at this point that we're playing on. Oh boy, come on, come on. Come on. I even started counting our FPS because I thought, yeah, this is going to be decent, right? No, it's not decent. It's far from decent. But given what we saw with the GTX 1650, this is actually not terrible. Alright. Stop that! This guy heals himself. It's really annoying. We need to get rid of him. Wait. Heal ourselves. Let's go. Let's go. This shotgun thing is also really nice. The weapon that I'm using. Oh, man. Yeah. It's still 30 FPS. Even though it's responsive, it's hard to control, but at least we can control it. I'm able to do this somehow. It's so weird because I just recorded the 5070 Ti video. I was complaining a lot because it was dropping from 60 FPS at 1440p, high settings, native resolution, and I was like, yeah, no, this feels bad. But now I'm playing here with 30 FPS, and my thoughts on it changed because we're playing on a 9-year-old GPU here, alright? So it's all about perspective. If a 9-year-old GPU can get 30 FPS, I'm fine with it. If a $750 GPU from 2025 can't handle 60 plus FPS on high settings, not even on maxed out settings, at 1440p resolution, its target res, one of its target resolutions, yeah, it's bad. It's very bad. So optimization obviously is terrible here in this game. Oh boy. But this gives me hope for the GTX 1080 Ti and GTX 1080 as well. So stay tuned in because I will test at least one of them. Alright. Anyway, we can't really do much in terms of settings. Obviously, we don't have headroom since it's already dropping from 30 FPS sometimes. But FSR performance at 1080p seems to be the sweet spot. Let's just try it out with a little bit of frame generation at the same time. Alright, and usually with frame gen, you require a baseline of 60 FPS. In this game, from what I have seen with other GPUs and tested, you require a baseline of like 45 plus FPS. Maybe like 50 to 60 most of the time with some drops. It's gonna be fine, alright? It's gonna feel responsive. I haven't touched the mouse yet because I want to be surprised by the input lag here, alright? So we went from 30 FPS to 60 FPS. Frame times are flatter because frame generation does that with Nvidia GPUs as well. It just removes some of the micro stuttering. But yeah, this input lag is insane. Yes, I guess some people will enable it and maybe play with a controller, for example, and be fine with it. I am not fine with it. I feel like this is really terrible, and I'd prefer to play at 30 FPS with drops into the 20s, with basically instant input lags because you move your mouse around with those FPS, and I could hit stuff. Over here, I cannot hit stuff. It's not... yeah... oh my god. I'm missing some of these shots. Okay, yeah, see that? I even shoot the ground sometimes. I'm trying here. Oh my god, this is a huge bastard over here. And the thing is, when we were getting 60 FPS, we were getting a baseline of about half the frame rate, so 30 FPS. Now we're dropping into the 40s sometimes, and 50s very often as well. So that means that whenever it's 50 FPS... Come on, there we go. Whenever it's 50 FPS, the baseline FPS would be half of that, so 25. Whenever it's 45 FPS, the baseline FPS would be 22.5. So that is really bad. Look at the time that it takes me to line up the shots. And I estimate like the mouse movement and stuff because of the input lag as well, because things are not happening in real time, basically. That's a really big issue, guys. Alright, at least we managed to kill that one. You can get used to it. You can get used to a lot of input lag usually. I love the ragdoll physics, actually. That works so well in this game. But yeah, you can... Stop hitting me, please. You can get used to the input lag, but it just feels really off, alright? I'm feeling like I'm trying to aim more with my character movements than the mouse itself and the aiming, because I can control that a little bit better with input lag than I can the mouse and the aiming. This reminds me of my PS3 days, actually. We managed to do this, though, so that means that it's playable. It's smooth visually. Sometimes it slows down a little bit, but it is terrible in terms of input lag, so... don't do this, alright? Don't do this at home. It will hurt your brain a little bit, I think. So let's turn off the frame generation now and go back to full resolution here. Obviously, that's gonna run very poorly, as you can see. Same 18 FPS as we saw previously. But I want to lower it down to 720p resolution. This might be playable. The 1650, for example, is getting 14 FPS at the 1080p lowest settings. This one was getting 20. And when we enabled 720p, it was getting 25, 30. So it gives me hope because with FSR enabled, like the quality FSR or something like that, maybe performance, which will look terrible because it's 360p at this res, but hey, who cares? If it manages 30 plus FPS, I'll be happy with this. But in terms of frame rates right now, it's very similar to what we just saw with quality or performance FSR, sorry, at 1080p resolution without the frame generation, of course. So yeah, this is not great. Once again, dropping into the low 20s at times. It just feels choppy as hell, but in terms of input lag, it feels a lot better now than it did with frame generation. So hey, that's a positive, I guess. But still, performance from a GTX 1066GB shouldn't be this poor, right? Also, you can notice that we still have reflections on the weapon, Lumen reflections right there. With this one, it's very noticeable. And yeah, that's part of the issue here, guys. In some games, you can't even disable Lumen. In other games that you can, it will break the graphics completely. It's all a mess. I will try it still, and I'll tweak the INI here in a little bit, guys, just to see if I can disable it myself, but I'm not a pro when it comes to that, alright? Anyway, we're playing now with quality FSR. So the game is starting to look really pixelated at this point, but at least we're well above 30 FPS at this moment, guys. And I think it's going to be 30 plus all of the time. That's actually quite decent. We actually found some stable settings for a GTX 1066GB. You can see that the VRAM allocation is not maxing out this time around. It's at 5.3, 5.4 gigabytes. The GPU power usage is still quite low, so I'll actually need to restart the game to see if it improves anything. It feels decent right now, not too terrible. Okay, so we're back into it, guys. It's behaving exactly the same after a restart. I thought maybe resetting the RAM allocation and VRAM allocation as well, since we were utilizing like 18 gigabytes previously of RAM, it would likely perform a little bit better and make the 1060 stretch its legs a little bit in terms of power utilization, but that is not the case, guys. It gets exactly the same frame rates, exactly the same power utilizations. I think at this point, the power usage is low because the game is just not optimized to take advantage of these older architectures of GPUs. It makes sense, right? They didn't even optimize it to run well on the newer stuff, so let alone the older stuff. Alright, let's go. Kill that meathead. Let's go. Metalhead versus meathead. Because I like metal music, alright guys, that's my favorite genre. By the way, I went to the Iron Maiden concert here in Portugal a couple of months ago, or 3 months ago or so. It was amazing, very nice, like awesome concert. Anyway, I'm deviating a little bit from what I should be doing, which is talking about GPU performance here. Yeah, so I guess you could call this a playable experience. It's not stuttering too much. We had to lower all of the settings, of course, to its absolute minimums. But hey, at least it is working on a 9-year-old GTX 1060 with 30 FPS, 1% lows. So it's not going to drop from 30 FPS at all, especially, once again, that we are in this area, and this area is pretty intensive, guys. This is a forest area. Usually it would be full of vegetation and grass everywhere, and it would feel pretty alive as well. But now we got these little patches of grass here and there, and, well, this is what you have to give up to make it playable on a GTX 1060. But let's stop it right there. We're at 39 FPS average, 31, 1% lows. It's honestly a little bit better than what I thought it would be with the GTX 1060. It's a 9-year-old GPU at this point, once again. So yeah, it's decent that we can play it. Oh, I was going to lower the upscaling quality already, but let's try frame generation first. All right, so FG enabled over a baseline of around 40 FPS average. We're up into the 70s and 80s. Much smoother visually speaking, once again, but with FSR... Oh my god, what the hell? What is that? Physics. With FSR frame generation, you end up getting a little bit more input lag than DLSS frame generation on RTX GPUs. Unfortunately, this isn't an RTX GPU, so it doesn't support DLSS FG or DLSS at all. So we end up with this. This is a ton of input lag If it was the LSS FG, it would be a little bit more bearable. It isn't though, so again, I prefer to play this game with the previous settings that we tried, without frame generation altogether. Different people, however, will have different opinions. So some of you will actually be able to play... you can't really get inside, okay. With this amount of input lag. Especially with the controller. I've tried things in the past with the controller and input lag testing and so on, and it's much more bearable with the controller than it is with mouse and keyboards. But this is a first-person shooter, so I really don't like to play it with a controller. Well, first-person shooters are just terrible with controllers. Oh, man. Wait. Goal? Okay. Oh, it explodes. Oh, this is so interesting. All right, kick. Look at that. There we go. Wow, we can play football. See, there are a ton of stuff here. Tons of little attention to details and things to do in Borderlands 4. It's a good game in its core, in my opinion. It just runs so badly that a lot of people won't be able to enjoy this. So, again, as I said in my previous videos, you should wait for this game to be fully patched, to be fully fixed, to have zero stutters, you know, because they actually have done the same thing with Borderlands 3. Anyway, that's it for frame generation testing here with quality FSR at 720p resolution. This is crazy low, guys. But let's try it at 360p resolution next. So we are back to instant input lags, basically. No slowdowns here when it comes to aiming and mouse movements and so on. Much more stable. I like it a lot. But the FPS aren't really too much higher than what we saw with quality FSR. That's a thing that I've been seeing with DLSS as well, with the higher end GPUs. You enable DLSS quality, you gain a lot of FPS over native with the LAA. You enable DLSS performance and you get like 20 frames maybe maximum of a difference. It's not that huge. Oh my god. I'm still overshooting my aiming, but that's just because low FPS at this point. And these guys are moving really fast. Come on. Come on. But yeah, I can be decently accurate here. Not too terrible. We should definitely go to this area over here. Try to fight them with the sniper rifle, please. Okay. I'm really low HP. I need to wait for my shields to regen. Let's go. Also, the fact that this is 360p resolution is also quite insane, isn't it? There we go. That was good, actually. Because it does not look as bad as 360p does in other titles. It's pretty good in terms of visuals for such a low resolution. That's what I saw with the GTX 1650 as well. No, 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 don't do that. Let's go with the shotgun here, up close and personal. There it is. Let me heal myself again. There's more healing here. Oh boy. Again, it's playable, it just looks terrible, but it looks good for what it is. Alright, if I can make myself understandable. I'm getting the hang of this, actually, guys, with GTX 1060. Yeah, not too bad, right? Again, I thought it was going to be worse. It's definitely quite a lot smoother than the GTX 1650, which is a 4GB GPU, so it makes a lot of sense that it's quite a lot smoother here. There we go. Still, though, the baseline FPS are not good enough, in my opinion, to enable the frame generation on top of this. It would be a little bit more responsive than what we saw with quality FSR plus FSR FG, but it would still be really terrible. So I'm actually going to try it still anyways. So FG is on. Yeah, I can instantly tell a lot of input lag. Does not feel good. Sometimes when it goes over like 90 FPS, it does feel okay. But there are a lot of times where it drops into the 80s, and then the baseline would be 40s, and FSR FG has a bit more input lag, and yeah, it's just bad. Over here, it drops into the 70s, and it starts being pretty bad. So, not playable. I would rather not have that frame gen enabled, once again. Oh, and I gotta mention, guys, that graphics to performance ratio is abysmal in this game. Again, this is 360p resolution on a 1060 GPU. Lowest settings, it looks worse than many titles, probably like 90% or 99% of the titles that have come out, AAA stuff at least in the last 10 years since the GTX 1060 released. I mean, just look at Battlefield 1, for example. That's not an open world title, but the graphics are insanely good. You can play that game at 1080p, ultra settings, maxed out, and get 60 plus FPS on a GTX 1060. It was awesome. So that's what's unexcusable about this game. Yeah, it is playable, but you gotta sacrifice so much in terms of visuals with this GPU in particular, and a lot of other GPUs, of course, that it's just not worth playing in its current state. Okay, guys, we're back at it again at 360p lowest settings. I restarted the game. I tried disabling Lumen. Seems like we're getting pretty similar FPS. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing, so I didn't manage to enable Lumen in this one. If you are wondering, the config file location is in the Documents folder. You go to My Games, you go to Borderlands 4, Saved, Config, Windows, and Game User Settings is right here. I tried adding this command, which someone said usually works to disable Lumen in UE5 games, and it didn't do anything. I tried searching for a Lumen setting here, but I didn't really find anything. Maybe I'm blind, but I don't think there is anything here that would lower down the Lumen setting. And also, this guy asked if it was possible to disable Lumen. People are saying no. And I was searching here in Nexus mods for a mod that would disable Lumen, and it's still not available here. So we gotta wait for that. Hopefully it will come in the future. So with all of that said and done, that's been it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you thought the 1060 would do better or worse here in this title. And I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.